Yeah, I think I'm good.
Yeah?
Yeah, come on.
Okay.
Bye. Hi, welcome everyone. Good evening. My name is Isaac Selter, an alumnus of Yeshivat Hakotel, and give a weekly shir throughout the year on Trei Asar. So welcome for joining us tonight. First of all, thank you to Shane Safran and Rav Dovi Fisher and all the other Hakotel Rebbeim and Talmidim that were involved in continuing the Talmud Torah throughout this situation that we're all going through right now. Big kol hakavod to you guys, and just so inspiring to see how much Torah is continuing to being learned over the internet. Even as schools and Yeshivat have been closed, it really is so inspiring. Our learning tonight should be for the refuah shlema of really anyone who needs it, but in particular, someone from my community back home in Muncie, Meir Yonatan ben Rachalea. It should be a zchut for refuah shlema for him and his family, and really anyone b'toch shar chulei Yisrael, and really b'toch shar chulei kol ha'olam refuah shlema. So what we're up to in this year, and you don't need to have previously attended this year, we're going to discuss Sefer Habakkuk tonight, which actually, as we'll see, I think is very apropos to our current situation. And instead of a pasuk by pasuk textual nuanced analysis, we're really just going to try to give a broad overview, thematic overview of what Sefer Habakkuk is all about. So it would be helpful if you had a Tanakh with you or found some online Torah database, whether that be alhatorah.org or Sefaria or anything else. We're going to go through some of the psukim together. And it's really a misfortune for Habakkuk that he was placed in a book that's translated as the Minor Prophets, Trei Asar, because as we'll see with our first source that I'll read for you in a moment, the foundational principles that really the message of Habakkuk is really a major one, and not something that should be reserved for just a minor book. We'll get right to it. What we're gonna do is see what we can get from the psukim as readers ourselves, but also see what Chazal were able to garner, which messages were they able to learn from the psukim. And the first source that I want to I apologize, you probably don't have it in front of you, but the first source that I want to call everyone's attention to is the Gemara in Makot, the bottom of Chaf Gimel on the bet. Even if you haven't learned Makot, there's a good chance this might be familiar to you. A really, really fascinating source. It says the following: Darash Rabbi Simlai, Sheish Miot v'Shlosh Esrei Mitzvot Nemru Lo LeMoshe. We know that Moshe was given 613 mitzvot, 248 positive commandments, like the limbs of the body, same number, 365 negative commandments, just like the days of the solar calendar. So many mitzvot that we have in our Torah. And somewhere along history, there was a need, for some reason, to consolidate the mitzvot into more general principles that can kind of capture the essence of all the mitzvot. And again, there's probably a lot to expound on this Ma'amar Chazal, but David came along, that's what the Gemara says in Makot Chav Gimel Amud Beis. David came along and he condensed all of the mitzvot, 613 mitzvot, to 11 of them, with more general categories like, one who's holech b'tzedek and one who's poel b'tzedek, all these more general categories of being righteous and being kind and being things that kind of capture the essence of a lot of mitzvot. But it didn't stop there. History kept on going on, and came Yeshayahu, and he v'hemidan al sheish, and he consolidated everything even further. 11 might have been too hard, to 6. And if you thought it stopped there, came Micha, another prophet living around the same time as Yeshayahu, and he established all the 613 mitzvot, 11, 6, now to 3. Yeshayahu came back and did it at 2, and finally, someone came along throughout Jewish history and established all of the mitzvot to stand on one pillar, one foundational principle. And that, of course, is, lucky for us, Habakkuk. It says the Gemara, Ba Habakkuk v'midan alachat, he established the whole Torah on one principle, Shne'emar, as it says in Sefer Habakkuk, Perek Bet, Pasuk Dal, which we'll see together hopefully in a bit, V'tzadik be'emunato yichyeh. The righteous person, in his faith, he shall live. There's something about faith, emunah, that not only captures Sefer Habakkuk, which we'll focus on, but captures really the whole Torah, all 613 mitzvot. And with that in mind, the focus on emunah, we're going to take a dive into Sefer Habakkuk and see why emunah plays such a central role in Habakkuk for his generation, given his historical context. And more importantly, we're going to see how that message of emunah pervades all the generations and is essential for everyone, especially for us in everyday lives, and more appropriate for today through the crisis that we're going through. So, just a bit of a historical background to what Sefer Habakkuk is all about. If you look in the first pasuk of Sefer Habakkuk, it says, "Masa hamasa asher chazah Habakkuk hanavi." Normally, masa is another name for nivuah, or translated as burden sometimes, which we can talk about at another point. But normally, when Nevi'im are introduced by Tanakh, we're usually given either a king or some superpower that is around at the time that gives us some historical context to let us know what exactly we're being told, what historical context can we place this message in. And strangely enough, at least for now, we're not told anything. So Chazal, we'll say one can probably do one of two things when faced with such a pasuk of given absolutely no historical context. One could either say that he lived at a time where there was no king, maybe at the very beginning of Bayit Sheni, though as we'll see from the psukim, that's very unlikely. Chazal, whenever they're faced with a situation where a Navi is not placed in a time period of a certain king, they assume that the king was probably a very wicked king, and therefore did not deserve to be written into the pasuk. And so who was arguably the most wicked king throughout, certainly Malchut Yehuda, perhaps even Malchut Yisrael? That, of course, was Menashe ben Chizkiyahu. Again, there's a machloket whether Menashe actually did tshuva at the end of his life. But Menashe was, at least during the time that he was evil, everyone agrees he was probably the most wicked king out there. And perhaps this takes place during the times of Menashe. And if that's the case, or if we don't want to say exactly the times of Menashe, maybe a little before, a little after, probably a little afterwards maybe, what's going on at the time period? So let's go back a little bit. In the year 722 BCE is when the kingdom of Ashur, who was the superpower at the time, they totally demolished and exiled Malchut Yisrael, the northern kingdom. Until this day, we don't know where, most people think we don't know where most of these tribes are. Perhaps some of them have returned, but the 10 tribes were exiled in 722. About 20 years later, Ashur threatened Malchut Yehuda with extinction. In the times of Chizkiyahu, we were saved, and Ashur had to go back home. And really, Ashur's remain, despite their failure of attacking Malchut Yehuda, they remained the superpower until around another 100 years, until the year 609. Again, we're before the Common Era, so we're going down in years. So until 609, which is where, of course, Malchut Bavel, the Babylonians, they became the superpower. And Bavel, they reigned for about close to 100 years. And they destroyed the Beit HaMikdash in the year 586. So what I just described to you was a period around 140 years, about the beginnings of Ashur's rise to power and their destruction of Malchut Yisrael, until their ultimate defeat with Bavel's rise to power. Now, King Menashe ruled for 52 years, I think around the years of 695 to 643, so right in the middle of Malchut Ashur's power. And so we can assume that Habakkuk is around somewhere in that time, probably more towards the end, and maybe even after Menashe, in the times of Yoshiyahu, his grandson, when Bavel actually starts getting a little more power. Okay, why Bavel is so important, we'll see in just a moment. Starting with we'll see in Pasuk Vav in just a moment. So again, that is the historical context, kind of the decline of Malchut Ashur and the rise of Malchut Bavel slowly but surely until Bavel can actually destroy the Beit HaMikdash. So how does Habakkuk start out? Habakkuk says the following. He yells at Hashem. He points his finger to Hashem and says, Ad ana Hashem shivati v'lo tishma. Ez'aki lecha chamas lo tushia. Hashem, how long am I going to cry? And how long are you not going to hear me for? I cry unto you out of this chamas that I see, this violence that I see, and you still don't save me. Lama tarini avin v'yamal tabit. V'shod v'chamas lenegdi, Why are you showing me iniquity? Why are you showing me all this mischief that's going on in the world? There's terrible injustice going on in the world. Why is this happening? Pasuk Dalid, Al kain tafug Torah, v'lo yetzei lanetzach mishpat, ki rasha machtir et hatzadik, al kain yetzei mishpat me'ukal. Because of all this that's going on, which we'll have to figure out what exactly it is in a second, Torah is being tafug, it's being stopped, it's being slacked, and justice will not prevail. Because the wicked person is, there's a discussion about how to translate properly, machtir, but the wicked person is cutting down the tzaddik, or he's undermining the tzaddik, and therefore, instead of proper justice emerging, this perverted justice, a mishpat mu'kal, is emerging. So Habakkuk starts out with this message, this almost yelling at God and saying that something terrible is going on, a terrible injustice, and he's very upset. Hashem, why are you showing me that something bad, as a Navi is probably seeing the future, that something bad is going to happen? I'm very, very, very unhappy. And what exactly is this that Habakkuk is being shown? Let's keep going. Ru'u v'goyim v'habitu, v'tamahu tamahu, ki fal poel b'meichem, lo ta'aminu ki yusupar. Look among all the nations, and behold, wonder marvelously, there's going to be a tmiyah, bewilderment. A work is going to be, a certain happening is going to happen in your days that if you don't see it, you're not even going to be able to tell this to your children. They won't believe you. Lo ta'aminu ki yusupar. When you tell this to future generations, what's about to happen, no one can believe it. And what is this event? Pasuk Vav. Ki hineni, says Hashem, meikim et hakasdim, hagoy, hamar v'hanimhar, ha'olech lemerchavei eretz, lareshet, mishkanot lolo. Hashem says, or at least Habakkuk, telling us what Hashem has told him. Hashem is going to lift up the kasdim, this bitter, this impetuous nation. They're going to march through the lengths of all of the land. They're going to possess all of the lands that don't belong to them. They are going to conquer the world, these kasdim. Ashur, which was once the superpower, thought to have not be able to be destroyed, is going to be overtaken by these kasdim, the Chaldeans or the Babylonians, are going to overtake them and become the world superpower. And Habakkuk goes on to continue throughout Perek Aleph that they're going to wreak havoc on the whole world, and more particularly on Malchut Yehuda and the Beit HaMikdash. There's going to be a slaughtering, just a desolation of Malchut Yehuda and the Beit HaMikdash in Eretz Yisrael, unlike anyone has ever seen before. They thought they had it bad enough with Malchut Ashur, and now this is just going to turn out to be much worse. What Habakkuk is bothered by is a question of theodicy, a question that has been asked for generations. We see it in the Torah and other places in Tanakh. This question was asked by Moshe. This question was asked by Eov, by Yirmiyahu. Hashem, why are you making not only the righteous, presumably Bnei Yisrael, Malchut Yehuda, even though one could argue they weren't so righteous at this point, which is why they're being punished, but why are you making these Babylonians, these Rishaim, so prosperous? Why are you making them be so successful that they can conquer the whole entire world? It doesn't make any sense. And Habakkuk is bothered by this very question. And he goes through Perek Aleph talking about the successes of their army until he points again directly at Hashem. If you look at Pasuk Yud Gimel, he says, Tahori Naim, Hashem, you're someone of pure eyes. Mirot Ra, so pure that you don't like looking at evil. You can't even look at iniquity. So lama tabit bogedim. Why do you look at these rebellious ones, these evil people? Tacharish, and you're silent. When this wicked person, the Babylonians, when they're going to overtake those that are more righteous than them, presumably Bnei Yisrael, Malchut Yehuda, Hashem, why are you silent? Why are you doing nothing? Why are you absent from what's going on in the world? Habakkuk is bothered by the same question. Moshe, Eov, Yirmiyahu, Hashem, why do good things happen to bad people? Why do bad things happen to good people? Doesn't make any sense. And this is Habakkuk's question, to the point that he says, Pasuk Yudalid, V'ta'aseh Adam kidgei hayam, kremes lo Moshe bo. Hashem, you're so not here, so not present in the world. There's no hashkacha, none of your intervention, that you're likening people, man, not just Bnei Yisrael, but really the whole world, to fish. People who the Rambam actually uses as pasuk in the Moreh Nevuchim to prove that fish or Ba'alei Chaim animals have no hashgacha pratit. They have no divine intervention. Hashem, by you not being present, you're making all of us feel like animals, feel like fish. We're subject to the randomness, the entropy of the craziness of the world in which you're not at all in our lives. And we can't do anything about it. So Hashem, please give me an answer. Don't let us be caught up in the net, in the trap of the Babylonians. Please save us. And if we need to be punished, okay, but at least don't let them prosper. Don't let them be successful. That is kind of the end of Perek Aleph. And this kind of wraps up Habakkuk's argument towards God. Hashem, how in the world can you make them be successful and us suffer? Tzadik v'ralo, Rasha v'tovlo. And let's move on to Perek Bet. Perek Bet, we reached the climax of Habakkuk's his complaint towards God, and yet again we still haven't seen an answer from the Ribono Shel Olam. And this is really, I say, the climax of Habakkuk's complaint towards God, because we're going to see how this pasuk is actually used by Chazal in a Gemara in Ta'anit. Pasuk Aleph in Perek Bet. Al mishmarti e'emoda v'etyatzefa al matzor v'atzapeh lirot ma yidaber bi u'ma'ashiv al tochachti. I will stand on my watch and set me upon the tower. I will look out. I'm going to be a watchman. I'm going to look out to see what he will speak by me. Hashem, I'm still waiting. You haven't responded to me. Don't be silent. And I'll see what I answer him after he rebukes me. Chazal, interestingly, look at this pasuk and connect it to a story in Masechet Ta'anit. Masechet Ta'anit, Daf Chav Gimel Amud Aleph, a well-known story about Choni HaMa'agal. Choni, the circle maker. Why is he called a circle maker? I'll read you the story right now. Tanu Rabbanan. Pa'am achat. Yatzar rov adar v'lo yardu gshamim. There was one chodesh adar, like we find ourselves right now, in which there was not any rain. Baruch Hashem, here in Israel, there's been a lot of rain this winter. But there was once an adar where there was no rain. And so what did the people do? Shalchu l'choni ha'ma'agal. They went to Choni, the circle maker. We'll see why he was named that in a second. Hitpalel v'yardu gshamim. Choni, please daven for us. I guess you've had success in these fields and in the past. Please daven for us and let there be rain. So hitpalel v'lo yardu gshamim. He tried to daven and there was no rain. So what did he do? Ad uga v'amad b'tocha kederech shasa Habakkuk hanavi. What did he do? Took a stick, drew a circle around himself, just like Habakkuk hanavi did. We'll get back to that in a second. Just like it says in the beginning of Perek Bet of Habakkuk, Al mishmarti e'emoda v'etyatzva al matzor v'gomer, the pasuk that we just read. And he said, Ribono Shel Olam, your children have put their faith in me. And they see me like I'm a ben bait, like a member of your household. And I swear by your name that I'm not going to move from this circle until you have mercy, have compassion on your children. And at that moment, the rain started to come. The story goes on a little bit about the rain came only droplets at first, and then it came a little too much in the beginning, and next, and then finally got to a steady downfall. But Choni HaMa'agal has almost this sense of brazenness when it comes to him beseeching the Ribono Shel Olam, standing inside a circle and saying, Ribono Shel Olam, I swear by your name, I'm not moving until you give me rain. And who am I following by doing this? I'm allowed to do this because Habakkuk hanavi once did it before me. And Chazal points to the pasuk that we just read right here. Al mishmarti amod, I'm going to stand my watch. Ag uga, says Rashi. He made an uga, I made a circle and says, I'm not moving until you answer me. When we get to Perek Gimel, we're going to talk about what is this, almost this like chutzpah that comes along with this prayer of Habakkuk and Choni, to such an extent that, by the way, at the end of that Gemara, Shimon ben Shetach says to Choni HaMa'agal, he says, Choni, if you weren't you and such a great person, seeing what you did, I probably would have ostracized you. I probably would have put you in chayrim. That was totally inappropriate for you to yell at God like that. I'm very disappointed. But you're Choni, so what can I do? So how exactly we approach this brazenness when it comes to prayer, and hopefully we'll touch on at the end. But that exactly, says Chazal, is what Habakkuk is doing right now. At least the attitude that he's coming to Hashem with. And here is Hashem's answer. Hashem says, Vaya'aneni Hashem bayomer. Again, we're in Perek Bet, Pasuk Bet. Vaya'aneni Hashem bayomer. Ketov chazon uv'er al haluchot leman yarutz korevo. He says, Habakkuk, write down the following vision. Make it very clear for everyone to see. Ki or chazon lamoed v'yafech laketz lo yichazev. Some familiar words here. Imit ma'ama, imit yama, chakelo, kivo yavo, lo ya'acher. He says, Habakkuk, don't worry. There's going to be another vision. There's going to be another the appointed time of you being saved from this terrible thing that's going on. There's going to be another vision either down the line or a vision telling of that future point, telling of this salvation. You don't really have anything to worry. If you wait for it, imit ma'amea, chakelo. If he delays, wait for him. He's going to come. It won't delay too much. Of course, we know these words from the Ani Mamin of Ani Mamin b'viat HaMashiach. Even though he delays, I will wait for him. That's coming from these psukim in Habakkuk. Even though salvation seems like it's so far away and that it's delaying, we commit our faith and say we're going to wait. And that's what Hashem's telling him right now. Have faith. If he delays, don't worry, everything will be okay. Or chazon lamoed. This vision there's an appointed time for this vision in the future. Some of the Mefarshim point to, what is this vision in the future that's being referred to right now? They say it's the vision of Yirmiyahu Hanavi, who's prophesying it probably a little after the time of Habakkuk, who foretells of the ultimate Geula that's going to come from Galut Bavel, that's about to happen, the 70 years of Galut, post-Churban, pre the redemption and the return from Bavel. Hashem is saying, don't worry, there's going to be an end. Just wait. Have faith. And here is the critical pasuk that we mentioned before from the Gemara in Makot, pasuk Daled, Hinei upala lo yashra nafsho bo v'tzadik be'emunato yichyeh. Behold, his Mefarshim say that the enemy's soul is swelled up. He has ga'ava, he has a lot of pride. He's sinning. Nebuchadnezzar, Malchut Bavel, they're ultimately going to fall prey to their sins and going to lo yashra nafsho bo. They're not going to be upright. They're not going to succeed. But v'tzadik be'emanato yichyeh. You, Habakkuk, the tzadikim, Bnei Yisrael, if you have faith, Nebuchadnezzar is going to fall, but you will live. You will survive. Everything will be okay. And Habakkuk, even though this seems like a very simple answer, and you might be asking, okay, what's the big deal? Emunah, faith, that sounds very simplistic. Habakkuk takes his answer very, very, very seriously, as we'll see through the rest of Perek Bet. Suddenly, Habakkuk has this sense of confidence. With this line of Tzadik be'emunato yichyeh, I can live if I have faith, emunah. Suddenly, he sees the bright future. And we'll skim just the rest of Perek Bet. He calls out a bunch of times. He points out in Pasuk Vav. He says, "Halo elech ulam alav mashol yisaum litzachidot lo." All those people that Bavel had kind of tortured and trampled on, they're going to call out. They're going to make stories and fables and taunting riddles against Bavel. They're going to say, "Hoi hamar belo lo ad matayu machbid alav avtit." Woe is to the one that kind of took too much for himself, i.e., Bavel, and has laden himself with too much heavy dirt and sins. They're going to be destroyed. Habakkuk suddenly has this confidence. And we keep going. Pasuk Tet. Hoi botzei betzaral veito lasuma marom kino linatzel mikafra. Woe is to the one that gained all this evil for his house, that put up his nest on high to try to save himself. Bavel is going to be destroyed. Woe to them. They're going to see destruction. Again in Pasuk Yud Bet. Hoi bonei ir b'dami mechonin kirya ba'avla. Woe is to the one that built a city of a town of blood, perhaps referencing Bavel's violent destruction of all their enemies. And continuing on, Hoi mashkere ehu misapech, I'm in Pasuk Tadvav. Hoi mashkere ehu misapech amatchav afshaker laman habit al morihem. Again, more calls out of woe. Woe is to this nation, Bavel. They're going to be destroyed. There is going to be an end for them. And lastly, we have in Pasuk Yutet, Hoi omer la'itz hakitza, uri la'even dumam, hu yorehi nehu tafus zahav hachesed v'chol ruach ein b'kirbo. Woe is to Bavel that put their faith into wood and stone, into their avodah zarah, instead of putting their faith into the Ribono Shel Olam. All of this put together, Habakkuk has this sense of confidence after Hashem tells him this simple pasuk, "B'tzadik be'emunato yicheh," the tzaddik will live by having emunah. Od chazon l'moed. There's a hopeful future down the line. Habakkuk, don't worry. You don't see the full picture. Suddenly, Habakkuk knows that everything is going to be okay. And through all this craziness of woes above, they're going to be destroyed. They're going to be fed this poisonous drink. That's a common motif throughout Tanakh of Hashem feeds this kosa tarela, this poisonous drink, to the enemies that are going to end up dying. Eventually, pasuk Yudal ki timalei haaretz ladat et kvod Hashem kamayim yichasu alayam, referencing Yeshayahu Perik Yud Aleph. All of the world is going to eventually fill with dat of Hashem as they see Hashem work His magic in destroying Bavel. Suddenly, all will become clear in the end. Habakkuk has confidence until the very last pasuk of Perik Bet. V'Hashem beichal kodsho hasmi panav kol aretz. The Lord is in His holy temple. Let all the earth keep silence before Him. At the end, contrasting with His almost chutzpah that He had at the beginning of directing His complaints against Hashem, in the end, everyone will be silent. Everyone will be humble. Everyone will realize that Kimalah haaretz de'at Hashem. The world will be filled with God's knowledge, with the knowledge of God. Everyone will serve God when they see what happens to Bavel. And that's the end of Perek Bet. So again, what we've seen so far is Habakkuk's complaint towards God. How can there be tzaddik v'ralo? How can there be rasho v'tovlo? Nothing makes any sense. Hashem, how can you put Bnei Yisrael through this terrible ordeal? Why are you making Bavel so successful? And Hashem gives him a very simple answer. B'tzaddik be'emunato yicheh. The tzaddik will live in his righteousness. And suddenly Habakkuk, that changes his world. He's suddenly so confident that everything will turn out well, to the point that he understands the need to humble himself by the end. Hasmi panav kol aretz. Everyone will be silent. No more room for chutzpah. And now let's move to the last Perek Gimel here in Habakkuk. Now here in Perek Gimel, we actually have a very unique Perek in that, well, if you read the first pasuk, it might seem strange. Tefillah l'Habakkuk hanavi al shigyonot. A prayer of Habakkuk on the shigyonot. Immediately you might realize, and even if you jump towards the end of the Perek, we have words like lamnatseach biniginotai. This almost has the flavor of a Perek of Tehillim. If you're looking, for instance, Perek Zayin or Perek Chaf in Tehillim, you might see the words lamnatseach or shigayon or shigyonot. This is a tefillah that we see coming from Habakkuk, something that we don't really see too often, perhaps even ever, among other Nevi'im. Habakkuk decides to offer up a tefillah to Habakkuk. Interestingly, Rashi, on the word shigyonot, actually connects the word shigyonot to the word shigaga, the word an avera out of mistake, a mistaken avera that Habakkuk has performed. What's the avera that Rashi says that Habakkuk did? Rashi says Habakkuk realizes that he was too chutzpahdik, he was too brazen in his attack to God, and he wants to do tshuva for it, and that's why he's offering up this tefillah. And we're going to touch on these aspects of maybe chutzpah in tefillah, perhaps at the very end. But let's quickly see exactly what Habakkuk is trying to express in this last parak of his sefer. Again, and this will hopefully give us clear understanding of why v'tzadik be'emunato yicheh, why this very seemingly simplistic message of have emunah, have faith, everything's going to be okay, why that was so powerful for Habakkuk. Says Habakkuk pasuk bet, Hashem, shamati shimecha, I've heard your report, I've heard what you said. Yeriti, Hashem, palcha bekerev shanim chayehu, bekerev shanim todia, berogas rachem tiskor, Hashem, I've heard you, I fear you. And now, in this very wrath, berogas rachem tiskor, a pasuk we say every day in Tachanun, call upon your compassion, have mercy for what's going on right now. But I've heard you, Hashem, I've heard your answer. And we're going to see some perhaps familiar psukim. Eloami teiman yavo, v'kadosh me'ar paran sela, kisa shemaim hodo tilato mal'ah haaretz. V'noga ka'or tiyeh karnaim yado lo, v'sham chavyon uzo. Hashem, Habakkuk describes Hashem almost emerging out of different directions surrounding Eretz Yisrael. Hashem comes from the south, Teiman, which we identify as Yemen. He's coming from Har Paran, which we identify as Ishmael. His glory covers the heavens, and all of the earth is full of his praise. Now, this might look familiar from the beginning of V'zot HaBracha, the last parsha in the Torah, Moshe's final speech. Right, we have V'zot HaBracha, Asher Barach Moshe et Bnei Yisrael Lefnei Moto, Hashem is I'm forgetting the psukim, but Zarach Misiir Lama Hofir Me'ar Paran V'Atamri V'Vot Kodesh. In those psukim, at the end of Sefer Devarim, Hashem emerges from Har Paran. He comes from Har Seir. Hashem is emerging from all different directions, and Habakkuk is calling on that same imagery. And what is he getting at? Those psukim in Parshat Vezot HaBracha, Chazal connect to the Ma'amad Har Sinai. Hashem went to all of the other nations to ask them if they were going to accept the Torah. Har Paran, he went to Har Seir. From this pasuk, also Chazal connected in the Midrash. He goes to Taiman, he goes to Har Paran again. And we come to Har Sinai, where the Jews accept the Torah. Such an extent that all of the Hashem's glory covers the whole world, all the skies and all the earth. Habakkuk is calling our attention to Har Sinai. And he goes further, pasuk Hey. Before him goes the pestilence, and the fiery bolts go forth at his feet. Habakkuk seems to be referencing, the Mefarshim say, Hashem's power taking out Bnei Yisrael of Mitzrayim, the dever, all the different makot that Hashem inflicted on the Mitzrim. Pasuk Vav, Amad v'imoded eretz, ra'av v'yater goyim. Hashem has v'yitpotetzu harei ad. Hashem has scattered all the nations. He has flattened mountains. Shachu givot olam, halichot olam lo. All of the ways of Hashem are His. The pasuk and Tachat aven ra'iti yo'alech ushan, pasuk Zayin, Yigozun Yerot Eretz Midyan. As Hashem, again, we're getting the picture. Habakkuk is describing Hashem's taking out Bnei Yisrael from Mitzrayim, again, Har Sinai, and destroying nations as they go into Eretz Yisrael. Hashem is describing Halichut Ulam Lo, another familiar pasuk to us. All of the ways of the world are Hashem's. He is driving all of world history. Hashem is involved in everything. He saved us then from Mitzrayim, and He gave us the Torah. And He goes further. Pasuk Chet, Havin harim chara Hashem, im bani harim apecha, im bayam ivratecha, ki terkav susecha, markvotecha Yeshua. Hashem, back then in Yetziat Mitzrayim, and also when you brought in Bnei Yisrael to Eretz Yisrael, were you angry at the rivers? Were you angry at the sea that you decided to completely split them? Clearly referencing Kriyat Yamsuf and also the splitting of the Yarden in the times of Yehoshua. Eriyat teyor kashtecha shvot matot omersela, yaroti v'ka'aretz. Again, the splitting of the rivers and the emptying of the quiver of the bows, attacking all of the nations. Again, he goes on and on. We're not going to go through all the psukim here, but describing, calling upon history, Yetziat Mitzrayim, Har Sinai, the destruction of nations as they go from the Midbar to Eretz Yisrael, and in the times of Yehoshua, another familiar pasuk we might see, a familiar idea in pasuk Yud Aleph, Shemesh Yareach Amad Zivula, L'or Chitzecha Yalichu, L'noga Barak Chanitecha. The sun and the moon stand still in their zivul, in their habitation. Right, another reference to what happens in the times of Yehoshua, where the Shemesh stopped. Yehoshua asked the Hashem to stop the sun so they can finish winning the battle. Habakkuk, and there's more to talk about. Habakkuk really is taking us, for some reason, on a journey throughout Jewish history. Yetziat Mitzrayim, Har Sinai, the Midbar, Eretz Yisrael, settling in the land of Israel. And the question is why? Why in the world is he taking us through a journey through Jewish history? We know this already. We've read the Torah, hopefully. We're aware of Jewish history. What exactly is going on? And I think the answer connects back to what we saw in Parak Bet. That the tzaddik lives by his faith. Tzaddik understands what's going on in the world. He understands what God is doing with his emunah. Now, how do we get that emunah? Again, it sounds simplistic, but how do we get that emunah? Habakkuk is telling us, just look back at world history. Look back at where we've come from. Look back at all the tribulations, all the difficulties, everything that we've been through as a people, from our earliest stage of Yetziat Mitzrayim. Look back from there and see how far we've come and how we've emerged out of every single difficulty that we've been through. And it doesn't just stop with Yetziat Mitzrayim and Har Sinai and getting into the land of Israel, Hashem helping us there, but it really takes us through all of history. If you talk about Churban Bayit Rishon, Churban Bayit Sheni, the Hanukkah story, the Purim story, you talk about Bar Kokhba revolt, you talk about 1492, you talk about 1648, the Chalmitzki rebellions, you talk about, as you go on through history, the Holocaust, until this very day, there are trials and tribulations that we go through as a people in our history. And yet we've seen that every single time, Hashem has been there for us. Hashem has saved us. Hashem has brought us out from the depths and brought us to Geula in some form or fashion, some bigger Geulot than others. But Hashem has always been there for us. And so what does Bitzadik be'emunato yichya mean? What that means is we look at Jewish history and we understand that just as God was there for us then, that makes me realize, that makes me know, that makes me feel confident that Hashem is going to be there for me in the future. Right? How do we have faith in God? There's a big debate among the rationalist philosophers like the Rambam and Rav Saadia Gaon. They say, how do you have faith in God? How do you know God? How do you figure it out through philosophy and through math and through thinking about using the intellect to try to capture what exactly God means. For most of us, that probably is a little hard. But the non-philosopher opinion in Jewish philosophy of how to understand God, how to have faith in God, most notably found in the Kuzari by Rabbi Yehuda Halevi, is Hashem is the God of history. We look back at our history, we look back at the experience that our forefathers had at Har Sinai and what's been passed down to us. We see everything that we've been through, and that's how we know, that's how we're certain. We don't need proofs. We don't need mathematical proofs. That's how we are certain that God is the God that I serve today, and He's the one that's going to save me tomorrow, no matter what difficulty I'm going through right now. God is someone who's hayah hoveh v'yeh. He has no before, He has no after, He has no past, present, future. He is everything. And so for all of God, all of history is just one moment. It's hard for us to understand. But as you go through an arduous journey, and as you go through difficulties in your life and challenges, and they seem like there are no ends, God doesn't have that, because God sees the difficulties and the salvation at the same exact moment. God understands why each moment of these challenges are necessary to achieve that salvation. Only God has that perspective. We don't. We're only humans. But if we look back at history and understand that God was part of the plan the whole time, that through everything, through Yetziat Mitzrayim and through the Holocaust, through Galut Mitzrayim, and through the Holocaust and everything, God somehow had it figured out. And He was there the whole time. And that message, just a bit of a tangent, is kind of the message of Pesach. In less than a month's time, we're going to sit around the Pesach Seder, and we're going to be, you have to see ourselves as if we've come out of Mitzrayim. And when you think about it, all the joy and the drinking and the singing and the everything that we're going to do on Pesach Seder, it's hard to imagine how people in the midst of the Spanish Inquisition, how people in the midst of the Holocaust, fully, with all of their hearts, fulfilled the mitzvah of what it means. What does that mean? The inquisitorial police in 1492 is running around on the floorboards above your head trying to find you, and you're somehow in joy over this miracle that happened to us thousands of years ago? What in the world are you celebrating? You're still in exile. You're still in Galut. But the whole point of the Seder is that we recall our past salvations. We call upon history, the Brit Ben Abtarim, which has stood for us from then until today. We call upon our history, and we say that, why? Because just as I and my ancestors were saved back then, that gives me confidence that even in this terrible predicament that I'm in right now, Hashem is going to save me in the future. And if He delays, I'll wait for Him. But I know He's going to come. I have full confidence. And this is what Habakkuk is saying. Hashem, you have the perspective on all of history, we don't. But I'm going to try to tap into that, because just like you were there then, I know that you're going to be here today. And that's what I'm looking forward to. That's what I'm trying to tap into. And I think this is really why Chazal kind of distill all of the 613 mitzvot into this one principle, the Gemara in Makkah that we saw at the very beginning. Mitzadik ben mato yichya, because through all of Jewish history, that's what has kept us going. That's what's given us the confidence to persevere, the willpower to persevere through it all. It's this notion, this idea that Hashem's going to be there for us. I don't know when. I'll wait for it. But He saved me then, and He'll save me now. And I think that's why what Habakkuk is saying is very, very, very powerful. And of course, very, very apropos to today's the predicament that we find ourselves in today. This isn't one that's only facing the Jewish people. This is really one that's facing the whole world. But we can call upon past difficulties that we've had personally in our lives, or difficulties that we've faced as a nation. I don't think haven't been so many difficulties we've faced as a world to this day. But we can look back at our past challenges and say that, Hashem, you were there for us then, you'll be for us again. And I don't know how, I don't know when, if it's hopefully a couple days or weeks, is it going to be months, is it going to be years? We don't know. But you're going to get us out of it. And that's what I know. And I think that is the essence of why Habakkuk really deserves to be in the major prophets, not the minor prophets. And I think that's what he's getting at. I will just close with one final, I think, also secondary message that I think emerges from Habakkuk, which is this notion of tefillah, which is we've seen from Chazal by comparing Choni Magal to Habakkuk, and just from the text itself, that Habakkuk has this almost brazenness, this chutzpah being directed towards Hashem. And we saw Rashi in Perek Gimel says, why is it called a shigayon? Again, most pashtanim, Ibn Ezra and the Radak, they say that shigayon is just a type of instrument or some word that references a poetic type of tefillah. But Rashi says there was a shigaga here, there was an avera, and Habakkuk is doing tshuva for that. And this notion of chutzpah in tefillah is very perplexing, because on the one hand, the very notion of tefillah, the fact that we can ask something of Hashem, this all-knowing, all-powerful being, and we're but flesh and blood, that itself is a tremendous amount of chutzpah. The fact that we can, when people talk to their superiors, their rabbeim, sometimes they'll refer to them in third person. How is the teacher doing? How is the rebbe doing? And yet, when we talk to Hashem, we somehow have the audacity to say the word ata, to say you, to look at him kivyachol in the eyes and say, I want something from you. What brazenness, what chutzpah. And so on the one hand, there is that chutzpah that is present. On the other hand, there's also this notion of chutzpah that's perhaps frowned upon, that's found in Habakkuk, that's found in Choni Ma'agal, that if he weren't Choni, as the Gemara said, then perhaps he would have been ostracized. But perhaps there was something wrong with that. I found a piece in the Ramban at the end of a piece in Parshat Bo, one of the more well-known Rambans. I'm talking about the importance of miracles, connecting with Emunah. The last Ramban in Parshat Bo, and he says that when it comes to tefillah, he bases this on the story of Nineveh in Sefer Yonah, and on a Gemara that talks about it. He says, the pasuk says, "Vayikru el Elokim b'chazaka." The people of Nineveh called out to Hashem in strength, b'chazaka. Mikan atalamein shetfilah tzricha kol. Here's where we know that tefillah needs a voice. You need to raise your voice. You need to call out. And he adds in this line, Chatzifa natzach lebisha. Having chutzpah, having brazenness, trumps being more passive, being a baishan, being more, can't find the proper word for it. But there is this notion of chutzpah that is necessary in tefillah. And that's why the Ramban says, that's the whole point of kavanat romamut hakol b'tfilot, v'kavanat batei chnesiot, u'zchut tfilat harabim. Right? Why do we daven in public? Why do we have shuls? Why do we have these gatherings of so many people to daven when seemingly, right, it might be better for my personal kavanah to just be alone. And yet we daven b'tzibur all the time. It's because this raising of the voice, this chutzpah almost, is necessary somehow for tefillah. I was thinking about this point in light of the fact that unfortunately so many shuls have closed in the recent days, which for pikuach nefesh purposes has been the right decision, but is often very, very, very hard for people to suddenly break out of their routine of going to minyan now to daven alone, and perhaps a break from the daily davening with minyan can help us appreciate what really minyan is all about. It's about this giving us the proper amount of chutzpah, the proper amount of confidence to look Hashem and say Ata and say you and say, I really want this thing from you. We have the tremendous power to do that and to effect, hopefully, a refuah shlema and a salvation in the days coming. And so hopefully throughout these days of trial and tribulation, we can call on these two ideas. One that looking in our past and our history reminds us of the salvation that is yet to come. Hashem sees the whole picture. He has a perspective on Haya, Hovevi, yeah, all at the same time. We can hopefully try to tap into that. And second, this last point about tefillah, about chutzpah, to appreciate the tremendous, again, too much might be a little too far, but to appreciate the tremendous zechut that we have, even when we daven b'yechidut, but especially when we daven berabim with the tzibur, to raise our voices, to call out to the Ribono Shel Olam and in a sense demand things that we want from him. What a special zechut that we have. I wish a refuah shlema to everyone here, anyone who needs it, and hopefully we will get through, hopefully just days, if not just weeks, but however long it takes, hopefully we'll get through this as a community together and see and hear of Bisarot Tovot in the future. Have a Laila Tov.